Hello. No one's in here yet because I literally just pressed the button, and this is. I was kind of rushing to get here this week. Oh, close this. Don't want to play back on YouTube. That's gross. But I hope everyone has had a productive week. The week's gone really, really quickly. Before I knew it, we're back to Saturday and back to this. But I hope that everyone enjoys. I'm going to wait a little bit because nobody's in here yet. But as always, this whole video will be available to watch after the fact. I have novels, I have manga, I have non-manga comics to talk about. I have some light novels to talk about. So a real mixed bag this week. Hopefully there's something interesting for people to enjoy. I've also been reading a lot more season appropriate, maybe is the right word, spooky spooky series books. Not only for October, but also for the podcast. So that's a little bit reflective as well. But as always, I think I'm just going to jump straight into what I started. Actually, I'm going to start with the novel that I started with and the novel that I finished with, because it's yet again same series. Discworld, not a surprise to anyone. On Sunday, I read Interesting Times, which is one of the Unseen University books collection. And this is an interesting one because it actually references, it's self-referential to the first two books, the original two books in Discworld, and the characters that show up there. This one also has like a faux, or the fantasy-esque Asia within Discworld, which is the first time I've been to this particular locale. I don't know if Pratchett revisits this particular country, but it's sort of a mishmash between China and Japan and bits and pieces of a whole bunch of Asian cultures. It was fun. It's probably not my favorite of these novels, but it was still fun for what it was. It was nice. It was nice seeing Two Flower again, which is one of the characters' names. The last thing I read this week was another Pratchett book, or not a Discworld book in particular. And so this is Thief of Time. This is one that's related to death and the characters that are generally in the death storyline. Death's granddaughter, Susan? Yes, Susan. And this one is where there's a character who is trying to, the auditors are trying to stop the universe yet again, as per usual. Hi, Aisha. Thank you for popping in, and thank you. That's really lovely of you. She said that I look amazing, which is really lovely. For those who don't know, it's kind of a little bit of a rush to get home. Not really. We weren't really planning on being out super long, but we went to Korean barbecue. I went with my sister and one of her best friends who is Korean. So we always seem to go out for Korean barbecue with him. And we had Korean barbecue, and then we had bingsu right away afterwards. It was a good night. It was very, very yummy. So had a good dinner tonight. Treated myself. So aside from food, the other Discworld book, Thief Time, auditors are trying to, I think, stop time, get rid of time, delete time, I don't know. And in doing so, they commission this guy to build the most accurate clock in the world, and in doing so, he'll be able to stop time, and it's pretty fun. It's fun. I always like the death characters in this series. But yeah, so those are the two Discworld novels. I got them out of the way at the beginning because I know, as like a larger series. I don't have much to say about it, and I feel like I repeat myself every week because I've been reading a lot of it, and I don't want to. Each book is quite different, so I don't want to over-explain too much. And I also feel like, I don't know, people are maybe not interested in a book series that's 30, almost 40 years old at this point. But something more interesting that hopefully more people will be wanting to hear about. So after I finished my first Discworld novel this week, I decided to finish a manga series that I got the last volume of this week or last week. So I could finally finish the entire series. I've been waiting until I had a couple volumes until the end, so I could just binge it all at once. And that is from Arakawa's Silver Spoon. This is her 15-volume slice of life comedy about a agricultural high school, and it's a fish out of water comedy. It's about our main character, Hutchkin, who is not from an agricultural background, but he decides to join an agricultural high school because he wants to get out of his normal life. He feels he's really under the pressure of studying and his parents' expectations, and so he decides to just basically try something new, get away from that whole situation. It's wonderful. It's lovely. I adore Arakawa anyway. This is, although I love Fullmetal Alchemist, I would argue that this is her magnum opus. So I read volume 12, if it would actually show. The glare from my monitor is so bright. That's a little bit better. And I read volume 13. There we go. And volume 14, which is the second to last, and volume 15, which is, if it would focus, is the last one. And you can tell, maybe, that our characters have graduated. They are out of school. So Aisha has said that I know that you recently started the series, and I was really excited that you did. It's a wonderful series. I really, really love it. I think it's just, it has a message to it, a larger theming to it that is so very personal to Arakawa. For those who don't know, Arakawa, if it would focus, grew up on a dairy farm, so she has a background in a lot of, I guess, insight to the situation or to this culture that other general mangaka may not. So I think a lot of the themes, a lot of the worries, a lot of the actual story elements about the struggle of agricultural families and generational farming, and having to change with the times, and the great financial burden and debt that can be accrued over time and again be passed on generationally, is something that is so prevalent in agriculture, I think, across the board, like anywhere in the world. And it's Hutchkin, he's not from this community. He doesn't have a family farm that he's expected to, take over when he's graduated, when he gets older. There's not that expectation on him, but he's, by befriending so many people, by learning about them, by understanding their personal situation, he sees that there's problems, but he also sees that, like, there's various ways, perhaps outside of the norm, that may be more applicable, and ways, small changes to make a larger, better positive change both for the industry and for the people involved. The last volume was great. I didn't cry with Silver Spoon, but it just made me so happy. I was grinning like an idiot pretty much throughout the entire last. It was really satisfying. We got a lot of character conclusions here. Yeah, poor Yoshida. Oh my goodness, girl. Things don't seem to ever work out for her. But I mean, if nothing else, you landed yourself a cute French boyfriend. So I mean, can't complain too much. But yeah, so I read 4 volumes of Silver Spoon, and it was wonderful. Really, really happy that Yen Press brought this series to us because it was a long time coming. It took many a year after the anime adaptation to get this licensed, and I'm not quite sure why, especially with Arakawa's name attached to it. Perhaps it was just a little bit too esoteric. But so yeah, if you haven't tried it yet, I do recommend it, especially if you like comedy, coming of age, and Arakawa. It's definitely her style of, hey, bizarre individual, welcome to the stream. It's definitely her sense of comedy, and I mean, don't expect the action and adventure and fantastical elements of Fullmetal Alchemist in here, because that's not what it is. But it's great on its own merits. It's really you shouldn't compare the two because they're two very different works, and they're both brilliant. I think the success of the execution of both of these just really proves how strong of a creator Arakawa is and has been, and the levity of a lot of her works, especially this one that seems so personal to her. So yeah, that was the first manga that I finished this week. Then I followed that up with a library comic. This one I kind of picked up because I'd heard pretty good things about it, although the writer, I know there's some drama. I don't really keep up with booktube drama and novel industry drama, but I do think that people have issues with this writer. But I picked it up because it was seasonally appropriate. I'd heard good things about it, and I really like the artist. So this is Pumpkinheads by Rainbow Rowell and Faith Erin Hicks. It's a graphic novel. The art inside is very cute, and it's about 2 friends, 2 teenagers. It is their last year working at the Pumpkin Patch, which is sort of a seasonal fair, and they work there every September and October. They're about to graduate high school. They're about to move to go do college stuff. And it's their last night, and they go on this sort of big adventure. It's their last night, so like, screw it. Our female character here, she's trying to convince this guy. What is his name? So Josiah and Deja, he's been pining over this girl who's worked there for years and years as well. Well, he's just in love with her, or in love with the idea of her, but he's never spoken to her. And so Deja is like, you should go talk to this girl. Like, it's your last night. Tell her how you feel. Like, talk to her, get her number, and it'll be a great way to end the season. It's our last night here. Let's make this a Halloween to remember. So they go on. So they're looking for this girl, but because it's Halloween, it's so busy, and every different store is busy doing stuff. So they're having to go between all these different places, and so it's kind of a fun romp between 2 best friends who are seasonal best friends. They don't spend a lot of time together outside of this Halloween, October, autumn season. but yeah, it's them going on an adventure, and it's great. It's really sweet. I like the two characters a lot. I think the whole story, if you're looking for something appropriate for the season, spooky season, then check it out. Maybe don't buy it if you're not wanting to support Rainbow Rowell, because I know there's some issues with. I have never read any of her books, and I don't know how the criticisms of her and her stuff is, but this was cute. I like Faith Erin Hicks a lot. I like her works. So yeah, Halloweeny and lots of pumpkins and some great characters. Welcome to the live stream, Mindflex and Psicografia do Inculto. I hope that is how you pronounce your name. Apologies if it's not. But yeah, so I decided to read this because obviously it's Halloween time almost. And yeah, this has been out for a couple months, and I wanted to check it out whilst I knew my library had it. Then, so I finished a library novel at the beginning of the week. So as per usual, I started a library or a book from my personal library. And this is one that I've been wanting to read for a long time, as with all my books, as with all the novels that I own and have bought for years, but just never got around to reading. This is maybe a unique one. I don't know. This is a Korean novel, which is appropriate because I went to Korean barbecue tonight. But this is a Korean novel, but I think it got a manga adaptation, which has never been licensed, never been translated legally or anything. But I'm pretty sure that this does have a manga adaptation out there. But this is Gon Ji-young's Our Happy Time, which is okay. So this is a story about a woman called Yoo Ji-young, who in her youth was sort of a pop star. She had a very famous musical hit. She comes from a very wealthy family, very well off, but she struggles with like a lot of depression. She's tried to commit suicide a couple of times, and on her most recent attempt, she's approached by her aunt, who is in her 70s, who's a nun, so a Catholic nun or Christian nun, Catholic nun, who the last 20-30 years has been going to prisons and basically talking to death row inmates. So she said, how about you spend a month with me talking to one of these inmates, see somebody who's like actually being convicted, and they don't like they know they're going to die at some point, but because this is set in 1997, so this is when Korea still had the death penalty. And they would never tell convicts or prisoners that's not the right word. That's the historical one. But they would tell prisoners that they wouldn't tell them until the day of. So you're in this sort of limbo, not knowing when your last day might be. So she meets this convicted murderer, Yun-soo, who's on death row, has been for a year, like a couple of years at this point. He's convicted of murder and rape and hostage situation and stuff. And so it's really interesting. Obviously, there's an element there. I will say there is a lot of the idea of the sin and the sinner and redemption, and tying to the Catholicism, like the idea that Jesus was put to death for his crimes. And so it ties pretty neatly into this idea of Catholicism and the death penalty and who truly is worthy of sentencing someone to death, what quantifies rationalizing killing someone for who has killed someone else, and also the situation that births these sorts of people, the societal problems, because Yunsu doesn't come from a happy background. Like he didn't get into this situation because he was loved by his parents and had like a really cushy upbringing. It's sort of like there's elements of this that reminds me a lot of Parasite, the film, the Korean film, which obviously ties. This is Korea has been talking about social inequality for a long time. But yeah, so this is done in each chapter. They have it's all told from this woman's perspective, right? But at the beginning of each chapter, we have like diary excerpts from this death row inmate and telling his own personal history and how he got to this point and how his attitude has changed since meeting this old woman and this younger woman, and recognizing her own struggles with unhappiness and wanting to take her life and things like that. So it's a heavy book. Certainly not light reading, but it is quite short. It's very beautifully done, I think, regardless. I mean, the death penalty is such a weighty topic, and there's not too many countries left in the world that still has the death penalty. The USA is one of the few places left. Here in Australia, we do not have the death penalty. Korea no longer has the death penalty. But it's interesting, and there's a really lovely and poignant, I think, quote in here that says, "People who've experienced murder are pro death penalty, right? But people who have experienced an execution are anti-death penalty." And the perception of like these people, again, how just is it to kill someone, to basically do the thing that this person is convicted for? Like, what gives the government the right to kill somebody when we're punishing someone else who's killed someone? Yeah, it's very, very good. If you don't mind a dark, melancholy, bittersweet story that does not end in happiness, or at least not for one half of our main pair, then check it out. It's emotional. It's beautifully written. I don't know who did the translation. I may be able to tell you. Let me see. Yeah, translation by Sora Kim Russell, and they did a lovely job. It's only 200 something pages, like 260 pages, so it's quite a short read, but worth checking out if that sounds like something you're interested in. But yeah, no more death penalty talk. More manga, yay! That's something that's a little bit less upsetting, maybe. Something that's a little bit more interesting. So next, this is a series that I've been reading for a little while from my library, and this is Inspector. I read 3 volumes of this, so volumes 7, 8, and 9, if it would show. And okay. So this is we only have the manga in English so far. I think volume 12 just released And this, for those who are wanting to read this, is part of the Kodansha Humble Bundle sale right now. So you can get the 11 volumes that Kodansha's put out so far. But this is a manga adaptation of a light novel. Well, I don't know if it's a light novel. I think it might have just been like normal novels. And yeah, so it's about a girl. Well, this girl. What is her name? Kotoko, who in her youth was spirited away by yokai and basically traded them or made a deal with them to become their god of wisdom. So when she was very young, she lost her leg and her eye, but in exchange, she forged this relationship with yokai, inhuman spirits. But she spends a lot of time at the hospital, and in the first 6 volumes of the series, she meets, well, the prologue of the series, really, she meets this character here, this guy who's sort of our second main character. What is his name? Kurosaki or Kurosagi, something like that. And he seems like just a normal, mild-mannered guy. Nothing too outrageous with him, but we later discover that he actually has immortality thanks to consuming the flesh of both a mermaid and another yokai that could see the future. And he was one of the only people of his generation and his family to survive, because a lot of the time the reaction of eating these 2 yokai would kill them immediately. So he has this ability. Every time he dies, well, he can't die, but every time he does die, he is able to choose if he predict the future. He has this premonition. So together, they help yokai problems. The first 6 books are like a main storyline about this like ghostly idol monster that's attacking people, which is tied to his past. They're dating now. They've known each other a couple of years, and she's very keen on the relationship. He's just like there for the ride. He's just like it's very good. Like, I didn't really know what to expect from the series overall, but when I got it from my library, I just heard about it. Like, I knew it existed, and I knew it had an anime adaptation just recently. So I was like, I'm gonna try this. I didn't know it was about yokai, but congrats for me. It turned out to be about yokai. I liked it a lot. I like it a lot more than I did. There's sort of a mystery element to it. It kind of relies a lot on like the mind games of like a Death Note style of story, with again a supernatural twist, but not so much Death God Shinigami. More so just normal yokai. Yeah, it's great. These particular volumes, I think they're adaptations of the second novel, because I don't think the author, so the book author, and so the story is done by Kyo Shirodaira, and then the art is done by Shoshiba Katase. So I don't think that Shirodaira like expected to write a second novel or a continuation for the series, but I do think there's multiple novels in this now. I think it was meant to just be a one and done. So the first 6 books, which adapts that first novel, is quite complete. There's a little bit of hook for future sequel and stuff, but it's quite conclusive, and it doesn't feel like there's a bunch of loose ends. So all of these stories in here are kind of short stories, 1 chapter or 2 chapter, just sort of mysteries and problem solving. A lot of murder. I mean, this is the second thing I've talked about with murder, but there's a lot of murder in these books. Again, not really lighthearted, but it does have some good humor. Again, I do like the characters. This is one that I would actually be at some point interested in picking up because it's solid. It's a pretty good time. And again, it's part of Kodansha's current Humble Bundle deal. So you can get all 11 volumes for very, very cheap, along with a whole bunch of other really cool, exciting series. But yeah, so finish those 3. I have 2 more left for library print stuff that's already for this series that my library has. So I'm going to finish those at some point, maybe next week. Who knows? Next, I have another manga, and this one I wanted to get because I have read the main series of this, but then I never read this one. Again, related to spooky season, I wanted to talk about the series sort of in general for the podcast. So, and my local library had this one, which I hadn't ever read. It one and done, which is good as well. And also, I think people might be somewhat interested in this series because the main story got a recent anime reboot adaptation, which I have not. Is the second episode out yet? I don't remember. The first one's out. So this is Higurashi When They Cry, the demon exposing arc. So Higurashi, the main series, is about a group of kids who live in this small country town, and it's a cyclical story. It kind of resets itself because it's based on a visual novel. For those who aren't aware, it's a horror mystery story, and depending on which route you go down, the main character changes and different parts of this mystery is told, but ultimately our main character will end up murdering or witnessing murder between the friend group, right? And over time you learn more about like, what does this situation come from? There's the whole explanation of the local church, the local curse with Oishiro-sama. And so there's this festival, the cotton drifting festival, and so it can, cause people to be cursed, and then that's what's causing them to murder people. And I have watched the original Higurashi many years ago. It was, in fact, my very first, I guess, proper horror anime. I had watched Hellgirl before that, but that's not really that scary or gory. Higurashi is. Higurashi gave me nightmares. But this book isn't related to the main story. It's sort of a spin-off about completely unrelated characters, but it still has to do with this idea of Oshiro-sama's curse. So basically, this is a girl who's in high school. She and her family recently moved out of Hinamizawa, this small town, and so she's got her parents and her grandmother, and they're just living their best life, having a good time. And then all of a sudden, their hometown is kind of wiped off the map. A whole bunch of people die overnight because of a mysterious poisonous gas leak. And as such, a lot of the older residents who had left the town who are very dedicated and devoted to the Oishiro-sama curse, they start thinking that this is a curse. This is, something bad happened in the town, or these people had left, they're not devoted enough. So this disaster is because of this. So this girl, she has a crush on a boy, and she has new friends, and she doesn't want to get too involved with anything. It's quite cute and whatever. And her grandmother starts being the same way. She starts being really paranoid. She starts like praying to the god that like to forgive them and to spare them from this curse. And things spiral out of control from there. If you're familiar with Higurashi, it's not really a surprise as to what happens or who's responsible. But yeah, this is very violent. There's a lot of scary, creepy stuff going on. This was some like pretty classic Higurashi. Oh, it's cute and lovely, but we're gonna have just a lot of gore and horror. This is a 2-in-1 omnibus, so it does collect the whole of this spin-off series. It was solid. I think it's nice to see more like Higurashi verse, if that makes sense, because the anime has had a bunch of OVA follow-up spin-offs that are more so with our main characters, but I think there's a lot of potential with people outside of the main situation for them to explore other aspects of and how people outside of the situation reacted to this scenario. Happy to have read it. It was really good. I'm sure we'll be talking, or I will at least be talking about Higurashi for the podcast, because Yen Press did also put out the main Higurashi series, as well as Umineko When They Cry, which is the sister series, set in the same like universe, completely different characters, set 3 years later, 1986, I think. I don't remember. Doesn't really matter. But yeah, Higurashi, demon exposing arc. That's it. And with that, that's also the end of the manga. So if you're only here for manga, that's it. That's all I read. Silver Spoon, Inspector, and Higurashi. But I do have some more to talk about. So we have next is, I kind of got a little bit, I don't know. I wanted a break from manga for a while, just because I'd read a lot. And I kind of neglected some of my other reading. So I decided to, read a light novel. This one's another one that I got from my library. I've read the first My Hero Academia School Briefs light novel before. So this is the second one, number 2, which you cannot see because just glare. Glare. But so yeah, I mean, this is I think of like Shonen Jump and Shonen spin-off side story light novels as sort of a different beast from a normal light novel series. When something is from a light novel, like when the original work is a light novel, that they have a larger storyline, a larger plot, a larger motivation, and character interactions and things like that. Obviously, that's how that works. But you see more so with stuff that's based off of a popular manga, like Haikyuu, or My Hero Academia, or Tokyo Ghoul, or Bleach is another one. The Naruto stuff, even Full Metal Alchemist. They are more so side stories. Full Metal they do have certain volumes that are like just one story and a spin-off story from the main story. This is more sort of short vignettes between actual events within the manga. So we have what do we have? I am going to just check in on this. Be quiet. And okay, so yeah, so this is set during, I think, season 2 stuff, where they are preparing for summer training camp. So they have to pass their exams to be able to go to this training camp to train, basically. So there's 5 short stories in here, 5 or 6. Also, there's a color page, which is pretty like typical. We got it's a fold out poster one, so we go class A in all of their colorful glory. So all of the kids from the main group that you would expect if you're a My Hero Academia fan. So the first story is about Momoyao inviting a bunch of students, including Jiro, Denki, Sarah, Mina, etc. I think, who else was it? I think one more person, can't remember, to her house to tutor them so that they don't fail. Meanwhile, at the same time, Bakugo and the other guy, what's his name? Kaminari. Kaminari? Oh my god. No, Kirishima. I know these names. I haven't read My Hero Academia in a while, so apologies. Kirishima are going to study in their own special way that Bakugo does. And then so there's that. Then the second story is about basically the bus trip to this training camp, and where everyone's trying to play a word game to get Ayama, the twinkle, like the sparkle laser dude. He's travel sick. They're trying to get his mind off of that, so they're playing a word game to very little success. And then the third story is the worst one, because it's about Minato trying to peek in on the girls' path, which is terrible. I hate his character, and I don't know anyone who likes this character. It's just the worst character. And then the fourth story is about, at the training camp, all the girls and a couple from class A and a couple of the girls from the class B have a sleepover and do sleepover stuff, girl sleepover stuff, talk about love and talk, chat and have snacks. And then the fifth story is the boys, the class A and the class B boys, having their own sort of sleepover. No, they're at each other's throats, as per expected. The rivalry is kicking in, and have a pillow fight. And the last one is about Ida and his sort of I guess experience. Like, it's actually an interesting ending to it, because it's sad. In this book and in the previous book, there's not a huge amount of Ida, and he's like, I don't know, he's one of the best friends, one of the main best friends. I'm like, I feel like there should be more Ida in these books compared to what there actually is. But it's about him. He wakes up early and is trying to find his glasses without disturbing anyone else who's asleep, any of the other boys. And yeah, I mean, it's not brilliant. It's not going to change your life. If you're a My Hero Academia fan, it might be something fun to spend your time on. I'm happy that my library had it because I had read the first one. It was fine. And I don't mind reading these sorts of Shonen Jump spin-off light novels, but it's not something I'd pay money for, if that makes sense. But yeah, so that was that. And then in kind of follow-up to that, I decided to read a light novel that I owned. Technically a light novel, a little bit different. It's a light novel, but it's not a Japanese light novel. This is an original English language light novel from Sparkler Monthly, which, so for those who are not aware, used to be a magazine. They do not exist anymore, but they would publish works, comics, and novellas, light novels, stuff like that, that were inspired by manga, and most notably like shoujo manga and female creators. It was very much a female focused and queer and like not the general like popularity base I guess audience. That's who they were writing for and wanting to represent, and who their creators were. So this is one of their novels that I got in print, thanks to one of the Kickstarters that they did many years ago now. And this is Decoy and Retrofit by Hazel and Bell. And this is a dystopian sci-fi post-apocalyptic, maybe coming of age. It's really, really good. I liked it a lot. It's only about 200 pages, and I'll show you some of the art. So this is, you can definitely get this book probably still on Sparkler Monthly. I'm pretty sure all of their books are still available to buy. They just aren't publishing new stuff, and they don't have a magazine any longer. But this is the story of a future in which aliens have arrived, invaded, whatever. They exist amongst humanity. They're called tourists, and a select group of people have been basically taken up by aliens beforehand and messed with, I guess, operated on. And so they do some sort of like brain surgery, which connects them to this like larger hive mind of this alien culture and everyone else who has been affected by this. And they also physically change them. They give them like an alien arm, and in doing so, in granting them this knowledge, in granting them this physical difference, they are now more in tune with this alien society. But it is very, very hard to keep your rational self and your self-identity when you are connected to such a hive mind of people. So our main character, who is this character here, Noel. Yeah, Noel. He's the retrofit of the title. And this character here is a childhood friend whom he had assumed died 5 years before when the aliens had attacked, called Griffin or Griff. And he is the younger brother of his best friend. And they also have somewhat of a interesting past. Not exactly healthy past, but they are sort of the last people, near family that they have. But he's a decoy because there's a whole like group war thing, and he pretends to be a teenage girl, and so he's the decoy. And then Noel is the retrofit, and they meet totally by chance, and they basically escape together because he has been hired to kidnap him, basically. And he's like, oh shit, it's someone I know, and he's my brother's best friend, and I also like totally hero worshipped him when I was younger, and I kind of had feelings for him, and we kind of had a thing going on, even though that was not exactly appropriate. It handles a lot of really frank discussion about relationships and appropriateness of said relationships. And also, like, I really like that it doesn't let the characters get away with stuff, and it is this larger sci-fi story of like who you are, and your place, and growing up, and whatever else, and in action, like trying to escape the aliens. But more so, it's a reflection on recognizing the faults of your past, and recognizing toxic behavior that you've done in the past, and how you've hurt people, and how your own upbringing isn't an excuse for that. It may be an explanation, but it's not an excuse. And so a lot of the story is about Noel rediscovering who he is, because he's been attached to this hive mind for so long. He's kind of forgotten his own personality and his own memories, and also juxtaposing that to current day Griffin, who the last time he saw him, he was a 14-year-old kid who didn't really have much of anything going on, and now is totally self-sustainable, but also very emotionally fraught, because he was kind of the last one of their group of three. His older brother and this guy left, and because the night that the aliens took over, Noel and his best friend Apollo, they had fought over the fact that Noel was making moves on Griffin. And so the brothers, their mom, like took the two to kind of like talk it out. And then the mom and these two boys who had been best friends, like total peas in a pod, platonic soulmates for the majority of their lives, disappeared, just like completely disappeared. They were taken up to the alien ship development, and whilst they were up there, their hometown was basically bombed out, and so they had assumed that the younger brother had died. Again, little did they know, oh my god, he's alive. And lots of emotional turmoil in this book. For a short book, it hits pretty hard. There's also a weird alien dog here. So basically the main plot is that they run away together. They end up hijacking this ice cream truck, which accidentally, unbeknownst to them, has all of these alien weapons in there, as well as what's known as a war dog, which is really, really dangerous animal. War dog. So they're trying to get rid of that, not have to deal with that, figure out what they're going to do, and along the way discover who they are now as people, and how things may change, could change, should change. It's really, really good. Also, yeah, I mean, it's nice to have just a short one and done light novel. Don't have to worry about a sequel. Don't have to worry about like a huge expanding storyline. It's pretty satisfying. The whole story, the whole situation, and the characters they have their full growth arc, and not everything's not explained, but not everything comes to a perfect conclusion, but that's purposeful. So yeah, if this sounds like something you're interested in, if you're wanting a post-apocalyptic light novel, something short, sweet, and kind of queer, then check out Decoy and Retrofit. I've been meaning to read this forever. I just never got around to it. And speaking of Sparkle Monthly, I have another book. The last thing that I read, well, technically second last, because I had read that Discworld novel last. But the last thing I read was another Sparkler Monthly title. This one is more so comic. Well, not more so. It is a comic. And this is by Kaiju. It's short, sweet. This is Maho Josei Chimaka, a magical woman Chimaka, which is just cute, short, little reimagining of what if story of this girl, or this woman Chimaka, in her youth was a magical girl called like Sky Sealer. What is it? I don't know. Sky Sealer Chimaka. She was a magical girl in her youth, but 15 years before, so when she was like 15 or 16 or whatever, she got to the final fight. The Gran has to defeat the villain, and she failed. It didn't work. She wasn't able to save the day, which ended up her breaking up with her destined lover, her destined boyfriend. And the city now has a giant crater in the middle of it, where evidence of how she failed so many years ago. Just a reminder of her failure. And now she's just like I think she works at a lab. She's a scientist. So yeah, she's a scientist where she works with rocks. I think she works at some sort of resource sector, like the oil and gas or something. But so she's now an adult, and the villain has come back. All right, the threat to the world is back, and she has been called by the government to solve this problem. And she's like, I can't do the magic anymore. I haven't seen Snakey, her little mascot, ever since that day. I don't have my destined boyfriend to support me, and I can't do it. It's not, I'm in my 30s. I just don't have, you're looking at the wrong girl, basically. But so she's, in order to try and recapture her magic, she spends her time with her best friend Pip, or Pippa, I think, who's her co-worker and sort of her best friend, current friend, and she rediscovers where her magic truly comes from, and the idea of that destined love, and where the magic being inside you the whole time. And it's sweet, it's cute. It's basically a Yuri magical girl series with but just a comic versus a manga. It's got obviously a female, older female lead. I think Indian background. Obviously not white, nor Asian. So, well, Indian subcontinent, technically Asia. But yeah, if that sounds like your thing, it's pretty cute, pretty sweet, It's not, it's not gonna change your life, but it's fun. It's nice to see an older, maybe more cynical cynical character, someone who has a bit more experience as as a lead, as the main character, and the idea that you're never too old to be a magical girl or to save the world is something that's pretty exciting as well. But yeah, I've been meaning to read this forever. It's one of their older titles from Sparkler, but very, very good nonetheless. Definitely check it out if that sounds like something you're interested in. But with that, that finishes everything. That finishes all of the books that I read. 2 Sparkler Monthly things, which is fine because I've been meaning to read them forever. I got some other Sparkler stuff that I need to read, and I just haven't gone around to it. Light novel, spooky manga, more spooky manga, murder, murder in a different sense novel, Halloween fun from a possibly problematic creator, but really sweet regardless. The ending to a phenomenal manga series, and my normal fantasy satire Discworld stuff. So yeah, I mean, I read a lot, but there's a lot of like the same series. I will post a link, I think, in the description after this is finished, of where you can get Sparkler Monthly stuff, because they are really wonderful. They do have a lot of really fun comics and novels and stuff. So I do want to encourage people to read their stuff, and because they were great, and it's a shame that they no longer are around. But yeah, they still, I'm pretty sure all of their books are still available, and they deserve your support. But yeah, so a lot of reading for spooky season. Got a lot more reading to do for spooky season. So next week will definitely be more horror manga, probably Drifting Classroom, and stuff like some of the Kodansha horror stuff. I need to reread Kasane. I need to, prepare for the podcast, basically. We'll see how novel reading goes. By my count, next novel I have to read should be from the personal library, so I don't know what I'm going to read yet. Maybe, actually, I might read a travelogue or a nonfiction. I know that's sort of what I've done in the past before anyway, but I never know what I'm going to read novel-wise. But yeah, so that hits me just over an hour. Thank you guys who were watching. Not a super entertaining stream maybe this week. Maybe a little bit boring. I don't know. It's hard to tell when it is just me, and I don't know how many people are really that interested in everything that I talk about. But I did try to keep things more balanced. I think the comics versus the novels versus the light novels versus the manga was a lot more evenly spread this week. I don't know if that's something I'll be able to do a lot in the future, but hopefully to some extent I should hopefully do. But yeah, so thank you guys so much for watching. As always, the link to my Twitter is in the description below if you're not following me there. I tweet quite a lot. If you are interested in this and you're not subscribed, please consider consider, because I actually have a lot of viewers who watch my stuff but aren't actually subscribed, which is fine. I mean, you don't have to be subscribed to me, but if you watch my stuff on a regular basis, then it might make more sense to subscribe in the long run. And I will put the link to Sparkler Monthly down in the description below. So those who are watching it now, as well as in the future, will be able to buy their books because they deserve your money. But yeah, so I'm not going to spend too much longer on here. I hope that was interesting, entertaining, maybe informative to those of you who watching today. And I will see you in the next video, whether it's... I'm going to try and get a first impressions out this week. I can't promise anything, but I do want to get one of those out. And then, of course, next week's one of these. The weeks come so quickly. Like, it feels like just yesterday I was losing my mind over Clamp. No Clamp. I couldn't lose my mind this week. Although I do have Drag and Drop to read. So next week, maybe I will be losing my mind. But yeah, so thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it. And as always, you will be able to watch this after the fact. Like with all of the live streams, I don't want to make them sort of exclusive to whoever's awake currently or has the time to spare the hour to sit and listen to me ramble on about a bunch of books. Yeah, I will catch you in the next video, guys. Bye till then, and I hope you have a great rest of your weekend and a great rest of your week.